Okay, everyone, this is my spoiler review of One Piece Episode 1, Romance Dawn. This was directed by Mark Jopes and written by Matt Owens and Steven Maeda. Before I jump into this review, please make sure to put no spoilers for future episodes, and please make sure not to spoil anything from the animated show or the manga. Now, having said that, I have no idea about any of the manga, any of the animated shows prior to watching this episode, so I hope you can enjoy this as seeing it from the eyes of someone who has no idea about the material it is based off of. Now, for a show like this, with all the news coming out, how big the budget is, a lot of hype behind it, it's always exciting to hear a voice that is so great to always hear, to live up to that hype already. Hearing Ian McShane being the narrator, he's perfect for something that would be a pirate show. And we actually start 22 years ago in the past from our main timeline. This is where we'll meet this Vice Admiral Garp, who we'll actually see at the end of the episode, and he captured this famous Pirate King Gold Roger. I love the wanted poster introductions put in front of characters we meet that are usually pirates, of course. And the people want to know where his treasure is before he gets executed, and it causes everybody to go nuts looking for it. It's like the stampede we see, and they say it's the new pirate age that's born the great pirate era, and they say the hidden treasure is called the One Piece. So right there, you know why it's called One Piece. It gets you excited if you're about to jump into this pirate adventure, and sets the stage for the present day where we meet our main character in Luffy. What I love about Luffy is that he is a dreamer, and they'll have his impact on his fellow eventual crew members, that he's encouraging them to dream throughout the episode, which I thought was really great and was effective here. And his dream is to become a king of pirates and find this treasure. But he needs a crew. I love we get to see this little bird for a bit, but when he asks the bird if he's with them, he just leaves and he says he's starting a mutiny, which I liked. And I love we see the energy of Luffy. This actor does an amazing job of making you really intrigued by this character. He feels so different, and that's a compliment to the show as a whole, where when people do adaptations a lot, especially of anime, they're scared to go too crazy with it, that they'll think it looks silly. But I think the problem that's been with a lot of recent anime adaptations is that they're too conservative, that it just makes it look flat compared to the comics are based off, the anime, the manga, whatever you want to say. This is something that embraces it and goes for it, and I think it really lands here, and I think that's what makes it feel so different, especially seeing him and his energy, and that it will be a polarizing lead character that maybe turns off some people because of how intense he is, but I think it also will make people fall in love with this show as well. Now we get this pirate ship battle, which was really cool. The cannons are sweet here. You feel like you're watching Pirates of the Caribbean again. I like seeing this pink ship we got going with the hearts, and we meet the leader of that ship, which is Alvida, and she's doing her best Negan impression here, swinging her weapon, smash some heads in, and I love the little moment where she's offended that she's not on Zoro's bounty list. That was great. But what's important is we meet Kobe, who is her servant. Now, what was so fascinating to me about Kobe, he looks like the character of John from Peter Pan, but he also acts like him in relation to Luffy. And Luffy being Peter Pan, being this dreamer, showing him a different life he can live, and leading him onto this adventure. What I also like going on to effectively do in just one episode is seeing the point of view of life that's complete opposite of what we're seeing of Luffy that Kobe has, that pirates are all thieves and murderers, but this is where Luffy's like, no, not the pirates I know. And this is really cool too, because not only does Kobe learn that not all pirates are bad, he also learns later on in the episode that not all Marines are good. So I feel like in life too, as we grow up, we start to learn this about just people we thought that were our heroes and maybe they're not so great, and vice versa. People that we thought were awful, maybe they're not so bad. So I like that they played that with Kobe here, and they learned together through that. Now we get our first flashback with Luffy, and it's 10 years ago, and we meet basically his hero, Captain Shanks. And no, he isn't Javi, but we learn quickly that Luffy has no family, he's on his own, but he wants to be a pirate on his crew. He wants that respect. That is his dream. We know this, but these are a glimpse at good pirates. I only caught this on my second watch of the episode, but that he has the same straw hat on that Captain Shanks is wearing in the flashback. Now, what absolutely shocked me was when he stabs under his eye, how gruesome that was. I did not expect that for this show, so that was actually a pleasant surprise, because I was like, okay, this show's gonna have that in it, sign me up. And what's interesting is later on, it's even darker when he explains he was actually going for his eye. And he says, I'm not afraid of getting hurt and I'll prove it to you. So it explains a dark mindset that Luffy has there just to prove himself in a really unhealthy way, with everyone always saying they don't want him to get hurt. It's interesting though, in present day, they still talk about this One Piece. Every pirate in the world is after it. So 22 years later, still no one has found this most sought out treasure. It almost gives me that vibe though that there isn't even a treasure. I've seen that story before and I'm getting that vibe now because it's so kind of hyped up by people in the world that it'd be funny if there actually isn't a One Piece. But Luffy explains to Kobe that he wants to get to the Grand Line, and that's where Kobe's like a pirate graveyard and he's like scared off by it, and of course Luffy's like, sounds kind of fun to me. Now our first real action sequence here is with Alvida, and I love the extreme close-ups they use on her when she calls Kobe a sniveling runt, very mistrunchable from Matilda. And the stretching also shocked me here. I did not expect that. I thought it was awesome and different and looked amazing and made me just think of, wow, I hope they can make the action this cool and look this good with Mr. Fantastic for Fantastic Four. And him announcing attack before he does it is going for it. That's what I'm talking about, where a lot of people would be too afraid to do that. I think it would come off too silly or goofy for a live action adaptation, but I think it really works, and I like they actually even acknowledge it later in the episode, so props to them for going for that. Now, after this battle, we cut to Six's Island, and we're at the shrine, and we're gonna meet someone who steals this episode, which is Zoro, and I'm sure is becoming a fan favorite right away. And there's intrigue to his character, about his backstory. They give you little breadcrumbs where he's lighting 2 candles for people he lost. We don't know who these people are, but he also mentions later in the episode that he promised someone that he wanted to be the greatest swordsman ever. I'm sure that's the same person or one of these 2 he's lighting. And we meet Mr. Seven, who works for this Baruch Works, and he wants him part of that. And he gets a great line where he's like, does it come with a free face tattoo? My favorite is number 1. And he gives him the finger. People who are big fans of Marvel movies, I feel like will like a lot of how the action works in the show. Just, it's very similar to the choreography, but also the humor blended into it is very, very similar. So I feel like it's going to catch on to a lot of people and they'll enjoy it. And he gets a great diss. He's like, if they were that serious, should have sent someone better than number 7. And we get really good sword fighting here, and that's just the start of it in this episode. And my favorite thing about this episode is how they did setups and then getting immediate payoff in the same episode. You know I'm a big fan of that, and it makes you feel like you didn't waste your time for an hour. For me, that was that they showed you the third sword was there if you caught it. Then it's mentioned by Luffy later on. He's curious why there's a third sword, and you get this amazing payoff in the final scene when you see what that third sword is for. I don't remember in a long time watching something that just shocked me in a good way, where I was like, oh my god, that's what the third sword is for, how he uses it. And that they also went for that, where again, a lot of people would just scratch that and not even have him do that in a live action version. Just one of those moments where you just marvel at, like, how are they doing this? Now we get another Luffy flashback, and he eats a gum fruit that turned his body into rubber. So we get a little bit of an origin there, and we see that Shanks, being the good pirate that he is able to laugh off a hostile pirate that comes in. But you see, Luffy's not about that. He doesn't like that. He's like, you should fight him. But this is where Shanks is basically saying to him, this shows he is not ready. So you see that mentor relationship there with someone trying who's more aggressive, very Obi-Wan and Anakin in a sense. But I love the moment in present day when he shows Kobe his body is rubber after telling him this by pulling his mouth. That looked awesome. So now they know they got to get a map for the Grand Line. It's also going to be in a Marine base. So it's a win-win for Kobe to be near the Marines, which he wants to be, and for Luffy to get a map. Now, as much as I'm loving this episode so far, this is scene here, there's one thing I did not like, where Luffy asks Kobe if there's anything he can do in the world right now, what would it be? This is where he tells him that it's dumb, and he's not going to say it. And Luffy slaps him. Now, it's unfortunate they kept that, the slap, because it's a loving moment by Luffy encouraging him that it's not dumb whatever he has to say. And like I'm saying, that this episode does really well at Luffy encouraging them to go for their dreams and what they want. They should have just left out the slap, because it made Luffy a tad bit unlikable for me. I don't like that. I don't like seeing that. I don't think that was necessary. I think you could have just had him be stern with him and not do the physical slap for our main character that right now, in all intents and purposes, is full of joy, can be silly, but you love him, and that kind of tings that a lot for me. So I was not a fan of that decision. I don't know what the benefit is to leaving that, unless it's somehow addressed later, but I doubt that. I think it would have been addressed at the end of this episode, if anything, but it wasn't. Now, Kobe wants to be a Marine. He wants to protect people who can't protect themselves. This makes sense from where Kobe's been living, where he is someone who can't protect himself his whole life. This is where Luffy says he will help him out. Again, the very likable things of Luffy. After this, we cut to Nami, who's played by the great Emily Rudd. You know I love Emily Rudd because of her performance in Fear Street Part 2. I praised her performance to death in that because of how good she is, and not also just acting emotionally and with her face, but physically. And that does not change here, but it's cool to see her in a more reserved place in this party of characters. And I also like the little touch they had from someone who has no idea about any of this One Piece stuff, that they had the little clown nose on the skull flag of the pirates she sees, and the clown nose on the guy's hat. So I'm connecting that's probably the clown buggy we saw his people from later in the episode, that tease of him. But she fools them, takes their ship, so you're learning there quickly about Nami and how she is good at fooling people, talking to people, being convincing. And she's a good thief like Luffy. Now, what's also crazy is when we get to this Marine base and we're in this beer hall, this is where the whole crew will be together for the first time. We see Zoro's there, Nami's there, and it's crazy. You gotta do like a double take to just catch that, like, oh my god, that's Mr. Seven's head in Zoro's bag. And Zoro's given a rice ball by this nice little girl. She drops it, and this is where we meet the Marine. I don't know if I'm saying this right, but I'm going for it. Help me poop. And I love this actor. He was incredible as this type of character, and the laugh he does later on when he's talking to Zoro when he's tied up was incredible. This actor's phone is going to be ringing off the hook for any characters that need to play a douche. Now, I love Zoro responds to this by telling him to eat one and apologize to the girl. That was great. And I love how they showed Luffy's reactions in this, because Luffy is us, the audience, watching Zoro do his thing in amazement here. And he does this all without using his blades, which is even cooler. And while this is all happening, Nami knocks out a Marine to take his uniform and go in disguise. But we'll learn that Helmy Poo's dad is Captain Morgan, and he's Axe Hand. I love he has paintings of himself in his office. He's got statues of himself. He's looking at himself in the mirror the first time we see him. It also makes sense that his son is so full of himself as well. Now, it's another person though who wants Zoro for his squad. He wants him to be a Marine, and he rejects him, so he basically blackmails him, tells him he's going to tell all the Marine bases of what happened. So he's like, a new career or the yard, meaning him tied up for 7 days. And he's like, 7 days? I can catch up in my sleep. Another great line by Zoro. Now this cuts to my favorite scene in the episode, was the scene at night with Cody and Luffy. And like I had said earlier, that Luffy's reflecting on Zoro's, like, that third sword, where does it go? Sets up the payoff for later. And I love Cody taking in a world, right, where Marines aren't what they always seem to him. Luffy has a line there, good pirates, bad pirates, and also good Marines and bad Marines. And he says, you will be one of the good ones. Really good stuff there. And more great writing here is when he's talking about Alvida, and he's like, I knew who I was, now I have no idea. What I like is that Luffy encourages him to help, but he's like, okay, you don't have to steal, but you can get the boat ready. So really cool, and it's a cool relationship. And what makes great stories is great relationships, and you're already seeing that in the show right from the start. Now, Luffy will try to recruit Zoro when he's tied up, and he knows he's a pirate hunter, and he's like, is that all you are, all you want? And this is where Zoro says, I made a promise to someone a while ago to become the world's greatest swordsman. And this is where it's important, when Luffy unties him and he's encouraging him to go for what he wants out there. So like I said, Luffy is this person that is encouraging them to follow their dreams and be more than what they think they're actually worthy of and what they actually want. And that explains why I believe when Zoro was about to leave, he still stays and helps them out, because there's just something about Luffy he likes, and it has to be, to me, related to that. Now, Nami gets a cool little mini action scene where she's nonchalant with the staff, takes care of the guards who are onto her, and this is where she'll meet Luffy. And both are looking for the same map, and they get their first glimpse at Axe Hand together. Now, another thing that's extremely nitpicking, but didn't make sense to me with this episode, was in this scene running through with Nami and Luffy meeting Axe Hand for the first time, they cut to a hysterical scene with Helmy Poo playing in the mirror with Zoro's sword. But why did they cut in the middle of that scene? I feel like They should have let Nami and Luffy get the keys, talk to Axe Hand, and after that, cut to the scene of Helmy Poo playing in the mirror and then go back to them opening the door. I felt like it was just a very weird edit. Now, Luffy will compliment her thieving skills and smart talking her way, talking out of situations which we've seen, so that's good. It's not just telling. And she hates pirates, so that's also a big part of her character and doesn't want to join his crew. This is very similar to Zoro. And she scoffs at him for using the map to find One Piece. She's like, people like you believe in something you don't even know what it is. Sums up Luffy perfectly. And she also explains she steals to be able to eat, so that's important as well. Now, a little moment I love, and I didn't catch until my second watch of the episode, was when Luffy doesn't get Nami's joke here about the odds of Axe Hand looking for other thieves, and then tries to act like he did at first. I thought that was really good and good chemistry between the two of them. And then we get this huge fight scene at the end, which to me was awesome. And they fight the Marines, and I love when Luffy's like, we're a crew, and they're both like, nope. Again, very Marvel humor, if you're into that or not. It definitely is like that. And I love the visual effect where they do the panels like from comics or manga. Looks awesome. This is right before they're about to go toe to toe with Axe Hand. Really cool and fun. And the payoff moment, which was incredible, where he uses a third sword in his mouth, which was insane. And I don't know how they pulled it off. And that's like magic, right? Like, that's awesome. And it was cool seeing Luffy jumping off his back, and that hit Luffy gets in on Axe Hand was awesome. And like I said, I love they acknowledge the calling out of him saying his attack moves. So they win that battle, they get the map, and they reveal that Zoro cut Helmy Poo's hair, which was great. But Kobe reveals he's going to stay, so that's cool. That's different than you expect what's going to happen. He says he's going to be a Marine, and he wants to make his own choice in life for once. Interesting, but also what really interests me is the line he says, next time we might be enemies. And that's where Luffy says, but for now we're friends. I really like that line. It made me, for some reason, want to watch this story even more. Now, Zoro, Nami, and Luffy set sail with the ship they have now and the map. So you're getting ready for this adventure, but we get this moment where we go back to Garp, who's from the beginning of the episode 22 years ago, who had Gold Rogers executed, and he's got a snail phone, which was pretty cool. And he's basically told what happened here, and that the map was stolen, and that it's a pirate in a straw hat. So he was very intrigued by hearing that, so it makes me feel like how important he must have had in a past life event with Shanks. And also, Luffy's pirate cred is going up from this, so good for Luffy. And we get this amazing teaser for the next episode where we see this green hair man in a spotlight, and he tells through the darkness, which I love the visual of the shot, and it reveals Buggy, this clown pirate. I love the music here, and I love the maniacal laugh, and the cliffhanger. I'm a sucker for evil clown characters, and this didn't disappoint. What a hook to keep you into the show, right? It's so important, the first episode of a show, to hook you and not have someone drop it. So even if they were on the fence maybe about some of this episode, that's an incredible hook to at least make you go, okay, let me click that next episode, especially on Netflix. So I thought this was an excellent premiere. I'm going to give it a 9.1. I thought what really made me value it was that it was clearly valuing the writing so much and the relationships between the characters, which is what you really want to zone in on. I think it did such a good job at that. And like I said, I only had two little things, that one editing moment that I brought up, and also the slap that Luffy did. I think that is somewhere you could decide to leave that part out. But otherwise, very impressed with the performances, impressed by the action. It's living up to the big budget that people know it has now, and it's really making me excited for what's to come here. And I'm already getting excited about the world building, the characters I don't know. So for me, as someone who has no idea about the source material, I'm super impressed, and I don't remember last time I really enjoyed a premiere like this in a show. So let me know what you thought of it down below. Love to hear your thoughts. I read every comment, try to respond as many as I can. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss one of my reviews. I also have a new channel you can also subscribe to, which is an X-Men channel. It covers everything X-Men, so you want to hit that. And also check out my brother-in-law has a channel that's everything One Piece, and my sister is featured on it as well. Check that out if you want to get more into this stuff, and I'll see you next time.